Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. So there's an old saying that ego is the enemy. And although most of us are familiar with it, I don't think we all necessarily believe it or apply it to our everyday lives. Now, when we look at ego, we're usually referencing other people. We don't always look inside ourselves and understand that the reason we are where we are today is because of us. The reason you are successful in your job is because of you. The reason you are not successful in your job is because of you. Now, obviously, there are other factors that play into that, but ultimately, you get out what you put in, right? And the same thing goes for the gym. If you're somebody who's willing to go to bed early so they can get up early and go to the gym, you're going to have more results than the guy who makes an excuse about how tired he is, how much he's got going on, how he has less time in the day as everybody else. The person who is willing to put the work in is the same person who's going to benefit from the results. Now, this can be tough to hear. This can be tough to hear, but if you're accountable for your actions, you're also going to get to reap the benefits, right? And it goes with your kids, it goes with parenting. If you invest in your kids, you're going to have a better relationship with them. If you get home from work and you're scrolling on your phone, or you put them in front of the TV while you do your own thing, then they're probably going to have some behavior issues, right? Because you haven't built that relationship with them. And if you haven't built the proper relationship with exercise or food, it's not going to be great. And a lot of times we don't fully understand, or maybe we don't fully comprehend and apply the fact that ego really is the enemy. And when a lot of the situations we get put into, we like to blame other people. We like to blame other outside circumstances that may or may not be in our control, and to be honest, most of them are out of our control. But we like to believe that if things were different, I would be different too. But the best way to actually create a different reality for yourself is to take control of it and understand that it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. If you want to eat healthier, if you want to start taking care of yourself, then that is your responsibility. When you were a kid, you most likely did not do your grocery shopping, just like your kids don't do the grocery shopping for your family now, right? And so when you were a kid, you typically ate what your parents did. And so if you grew up with some bad habits, that wasn't your fault. But now you're a grown man, you're a dad, you have your own kids, and that is your responsibility to take control of not only your health, but your family's health too. So if your kids don't have the best eating habits, unfortunately, that is your responsibility to help them. We can't rely on schools in their health class because, to be honest, there's not much nutritional knowledge, or even requirements in schools K through 12, even in college. Unless you major in something nutrition related, you're not going to get enough information that's going to have a significant impact. Now, things are getting better, but it starts from the home. If you're taught to act one way at school, and you act completely different way at home, well, you're going to be home a lot longer. You're going to be with your parents a lot longer than you are with a teacher. So they're going to learn from you. And so it is your responsibility as a dad not only to take control of your own eating, but of your kids as well. And ego goes a long way. It affects lots of things. It affects our workouts. It affects how we eat. It affects our success in pretty much every single thing we do. Now, I've had to take a big step back in my workouts lately. When I was 16 years old, when I was 16 years old. I started having back pain, and so I went through, went to chiropractors, physical therapist, many different doctors, massage therapy, all these different things to try and fix it. And some helped, some didn't. And I've kind of found what works for me and what doesn't through lots of trial and error. But I could have been feeling a lot better a long time ago if I would have put my ego aside and realized that although I feel like I should be able to do something right now, I can't do that. And I think we all kind of get in the same kind of routine and stuff. So for my workouts, I've really taken a step back to go back through the basics. Even though, I could lift more weight in the past, or I could do different, more advanced body weight exercise and stuff, I've taken a few steps back and gone back to the basics and really focused on the fundamentals and make sure my form is sound, because to be honest, I really do not care anymore how much weight I could lift. But I do care how much weight I can lift with good form, because if I know I have good form, I'm going to prevent injury. And if I can prevent more injuries, then I know I'm going to be able to play with my kids more pain free. I can run around. I don't have to tell my son, no, you can't get on my shoulders right now. Daddy's back is hurting. And so I have to remind myself of this constantly, to put my ego aside and just focus on good quality reps, focus on excellent form, and focus on the basics and master those before I move on. And the same thing goes with your eating as well. If you're somebody that struggles with cake or chips or Sour Patch Kids, then it's probably something you can't or probably shouldn't have in the house. Now, there there are people that are going to say, well, I should be able to have the willpower to not be able to open up the bag of Oreos late at night, or the Chips Ahoy, or whatever it may be. And maybe you should. But if you have the self-discipline to not buy it in the first place, you don't have to use the willpower not to eat it. Now, that is something that's kind of counterintuitive to what you've been taught. We want to power through things. If you have those cookies in the cupboard and they're just talking to you at night, they're talking to you at night when your kids are in bed. Maybe your wife went to sleep early too, so it's just you watching TV up at night. You're alone with your cravings, right? And that bag of chips is in there, and you tell yourself the entire night, I'm not going to eat them, I'm not going to eat them, and you don't eat them. Awesome, you can go to bed happy that night. But tomorrow night, it's going to happen again. And so the people that have the most willpower, the people that have the best discipline, are the ones that have to use their willpower the least. Because if you can prevent yourself from actually buying those chips, then you're not going to have to use the willpower in the evenings to not eat them, because in order to get them, you're going to have to get in your car and drive to the store late at night. And maybe you will do that. Maybe that craving is strong enough that you will do that. But chances are you're going to be okay that night. Now, obviously, you're going to want to improve your relationship with food and understand that you can have some of these things and you can have them sometimes. But if this is a food you struggle with, then you will have to come to the realization that maybe this is something you can't have as often. I know for a fact that if I buy Sour Patch Kids and they are in the cupboard, I am eating them that night. So I never buy the big bag of them, because if I buy the big bag of them, I'm not having one serving. I'm not having two servings. I probably have three or four. I may eventually eat that entire bag, and I'm going to love every bite of it. But then later on, I'm going to regret it. So I don't buy it. If I buy Sour Patch Kids, I spend a little extra money per serving and I buy the individual boxes, because I know that's going to help me stay more accountable to myself. And then this gives me a way to still enjoy those foods, to still enjoy the foods I actually like, but it puts more of a restraint on myself. And the more rules you have for yourself, it feels more restrictive. But the more discipline you have, I believe it was Jocko Willing, discipline equals freedom. The more discipline you have, the more rules you set for yourself, the more discipline you actually, or sorry, the more freedom you are actually going to have. And so one of my rules is, I set my calorie goal, I set my protein goal. If I've hit my protein goal for the day and I've hit my calorie goal and I have room, I have room to have some Sour Patch Kids or maybe an ice cream sandwich or something, then I go ahead and have it. I go ahead and have it. And if I have it in the house, yeah, sure, I go enjoy it. But I'm not leaving late at night to go to the store. I've done that in the past, and I've never woke up the next day and been like, man, I'm really glad I left last night to go get that Oreo ice cream, right? And in the moment, you're going to enjoy it, but is that 10 minutes of enjoyment really worth it? Chances are probably not. And so sometimes we have to set our ego aside. You may not struggle with chips. You may not struggle with Sour Patch Kids. You may not struggle with cheeseburgers, but I guarantee you probably struggle with something. And instead of kind of avoiding it and being like, man, why do I have to do this? Why am I the one that can't have this food without being tempted or without eating too much? Realize that right now that is something you struggle with and kind of work into that a little bit and understand that, you know what, I'm going to have to improve this relationship. I can have some Sour Patch Kids, can have a couple cookies, but I realize right now this is a temptation for me. So I will keep a couple of them in the house. I'll keep a couple of them in the house and then I can enjoy them when I want to, but once they're gone, they're gone. I'm not going to the store. If I buy we maybe you go if you're like my family, we go grocery shopping once a week, once every other week. Usually do the uh, order it, the grocery pick. That's what I was trying to say there, the grocery pickup. And so, um, I'm able to kind of budget out my food for the week financially, and if I'm trying to hit my calorie goal and things like that. So if I buy three small boxes of Sour Patch Kids, well, those have to last me the whole week. And once I'm done with them, I'm not getting any more until next week, right? So maybe that's something you have to do. If you buy a bag of chips and chips is something you really like, maybe you buy the individual bags and you allow yourself to have one a day. If you buy the big bag, that big bag's got to last you the entire week. Set some rules for yourself. And although it does sound more restrictive, long term, it's going to allow you more freedom because you're going to still be able to eat some of those foods that you do like, that you do enjoy, and you're still going to be able to work towards your goals. And so sometimes we just have to get out of our own way. We have to get out of our own way. I know that when my back has been the worst at times, I've gotten frustrated and I thought, why do I have to do these exercises? Why do I have to work on my core strength all the time? And these other people don't. I work out way more than these other people, and they don't struggle with any of these pains that I do. And I got in that mindset for a really long time. But you know what? They're not me. They're not me, and they do not struggle with that. And so, no, they do not have to do those exercises I have to do. And you know that's okay. Not everybody is going to struggle because they have their own struggles. You have your own struggles. You struggle with things that I don't, and I struggle with things that you don't. And so just because somebody else struggles with somebody doesn't mean you do. If you can have three bags of chips in your cupboard and you don't touch them for a week, that's awesome. Then you're probably okay to buy those. If you buy a box of Chips Ahoy cookies and you're going to eat them in the whole in one sitting, then that's probably not something you can have in the house. And so not everybody's problems are the same, and sometimes we have to get out of our own way and so we can actually succeed. Sometimes you have to take a step back in the gym, take off some weight, practice on your form, and so you can eventually lift heavier weights, right? Sometimes, I think that especially as dads, we get very stubborn. I know I am stubborn. It's something I'm working on. I know a lot of times I get kind of stuck in my ways, but I think the quicker we can learn to, set our ego aside and just focus on the fundamentals and understand that we don't know everything. We don't, I continue to learn so much about fitness and nutrition all the time. Things I believed a few years ago, I no longer practice. I no longer teach my clients either. And so I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly trying to get out of my own way. And so I can eventually get to where I want to go. So hopefully this episode was helpful. I know the topic was a little bit different than what I normally talk about, but I think it's something important. I think it's something we all struggle with, and it's not necessarily always talked about. So hopefully, the information and this episode you enjoyed. If you ever have an idea for a topic for a future episode, or something in this episode really resonated with go ahead and send me a message on Instagram at apluff training, so Anthony Pluff Training, or you can join my free Facebook group on Facebook, Fatherhood Fitness, exclusively for dads. It's a great community. It's a lot of fun. Each week in there, we do go live with the topic on typically Tuesday evenings. So if you're interested in kind of learning more, go ahead and you can search my name on Facebook. The description, the information is also in the description of this episode. That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.